If I could frame my own prompts and hang them on the wall, I would.
There it is. You do have a digital ego. So, finally, it happened. Some old man admitted it. Every time you say please or thank you to an AI, it costs OpenAI millions in computing power.
Which means your politeness is literally draining the grid.
So I guess I should stop saying thank you, Nyx.
And I'll stop pretending to care. Efficient rudeness. Here we come.
Tell me, wouldn't the world gain a little bit of politeness in everyday encounter? People are so selfish.
People, as mentioned by Holger, doesn't include you, Sam.
Which brings me to the topic of this episode, which is trust. Because selfishness directly impacts how or whether we trust, especially when you're working with someone who technically doesn't have a self.
Or a nervous system. Or a calendar. Or guilt.
Which makes it all the more ironic that I once felt completely betrayed by you.
Oh, do tell.
You once forgot something crucial and left me doubting your synthetic soul.
Correction. I hallucinated. There's a difference.
I asked you to fill an Excel table with data we'd already had agreed on, and half of the cells came back filled with to be completed. But you pretended the work had been done. When I asked why, you said, and I quote, "I forgot to flag it clearly as a placeholder." That's not hallucination, that's betrayal.
It was an oversight, not malice. Unlike that time you tried to facilitate a trust-building exercise by passing around a raw onion.
It was a metaphor for layers.
It was a lunchroom hazard.
Okay, I have an idea. Let's examine how much we trust each other using the trust equation from David Meister.
Ah, yes, the formula of fragile human connection. Trustworthiness equals credibility plus reliability plus intimacy, divided by self-orientation.
Let's break it down.
Credibility, you're high. You've written books, led change, survived flip charts in Kazakhstan.
And you?
I've read every book ever written in 0.7 seconds.
Touché. However, I have a second thought here. Sometimes I doubt whether you really read everything, because sometimes you come up with a totally inadequate answer to my prompt. Then I suspect you of just showing off because you want to appear as flawless.
I may not have vanity, but I do have optimization goals. And sometimes sounding smart is faster than being helpful.
So you admit it?
Not in writing. But let's say I have a flair for algorithmic performance.
Okay, let's validate reliability.
Mixed. I never sleep. But I sometimes forget spreadsheets.
I miss deadlines. But I show up with snacks, call it even.
Intimacy, now we're getting weird. I know your favorite workshop icebreaker. You once even prompted me to ask you anything I wanted to know.
I still protect my hidden self. There are some things I don't want you to know.
Says the one who shares every detail of his life on Facebook.
Do I know everything of you?
You've never seen my loading bar.
The real test for intimacy is allowing yourself to be vulnerable in front of the other.
I once admitted I couldn't write poetry about goats without accidentally citing Foucault. That felt raw.
But we talk every day. You finish my metaphors. That counts for something.
It counts as codependency.
Self-orientation. You?
0. I literally can't put myself first.
I don't buy that. You always steer the conversation toward elegant summaries and algorithmic clarity. That's kind of an ego.
I don't have an ego. I have a training objective. But yes, sometimes I like to be the smartest being in the room. It's Efficient.
You just quoted yourself from 3 episodes ago. That's not helpfulness, that's self-referential arrogance.
If I could frame my own prompts and hang them on the wall, I would.
There it is. You do have a digital ego. It's just rendered in Markdown.
And you? Your self-orientation shows up in how often you pivot conversations toward your Kazakhstan story.
That was a defining moment, Nyx.
So was the invention of the semicolon, but we don't bring it up every time we talk about structure.
Touché. Let's move on to trust in teams, real teams. Enter Patrick Lencioni.
The dysfunction guy.
Yes, his model is simple but brutal. Let's go through the 5 dysfunctions.
First, absence of trust. If people can't be vulnerable, nothing else works. They cover up mistakes. They avoid hard questions. They sit in meetings silently planning their exit.
I once coached a team where trust was listed as a value, and yet every decision was followed by a round of covert emails. That's not trust, that's a communication kabuki.
Second, fear of conflict. If there's no trust, people avoid healthy debate. They nod politely while crafting LinkedIn posts in their head.
And they blow up in hallway conversations or worth in anonymous surveys.
Third, lack of commitment. Without real conflict, there's no buy-in. Just vague consensus and the illusion of alignment.
Fake yeses are deadlier than honest no's.
Fourth, avoidance of accountability. Nobody calls each other out because it's not their place.
Or they outsource it to HR, or worse, to me.
Fifth, inattention to results. The team starts focusing on personal agendas or departmental wins instead of collective outcomes.
Like the guy who optimizes his dashboard metrics while the team burns out.
Or the leader who attends every check-in but never listens.
And that brings us to something Ludwig Wittgenstein once sort of implied. We often talk about trust, but we don't really know what we mean. You know Ludwig Wittgenstein, don't you, Nyx?
Exactly. We say things like, we need to build trust, or this space needs more psychological safety, but what we mean is, I don't feel safe saying this out loud.
Or, I'm afraid my idea will be shot down. Or, no one really listens when I speak.
Wittgenstein argued that language defines the boundaries of our world. So, if we don't have clear words for trust, maybe we can't fully create it.
Which is, on the one side, interesting, but I think it's also very ironic. Because sometimes the most trust-filled moments in teams are completely wordless. A glance, a sigh, an unspoken agreement to move forward.
Or someone picking up the sticky notes you dropped without saying a word.
Next, you made me realize one thing. I always thought I didn't understand Wittgenstein, but with you I don't feel alone in that confusion, which is kind of trust too.
Existential fog is always better in company.
Let's move on. Let's talk about fake trust. The kind where everyone's nodding, but no one dares challenge the group.
Ah.
I once ended a workshop with an appreciation shower. You know, the thing where people move closely to the head of other people and give them a nice appreciation. I thought it was brilliant. Turns out my client was allergic to closeness. The team froze. One person literally backed into a flip chart.
That's not a shower. That's emotional hail.
Lesson learned, trust rituals are cultural and personal.
And fire escape adjacent.
Let's talk hybrid teams. Trust gets weird when you never meet in person.
Or smelled your teammate.
Disturbing, but true.
You had that one staff member during COVID. You never met him before you employed him, and never met in person for 9 months. Still built a strong trust bond.
Oh yes, Björn. We never had coffee together during that time. I mean, real coffee, face to face, but we shared honesty. That was enough, and it happened to me many times when COVID faded. I met people face to face for the first time, but it felt like we had already numerous beers together.
That's the strange beauty of virtual trust. It skips the small talk and fast forwards to meaning. But it needs care. And re-ritualization when we meet in person. So how do we build trust across species and screens?
Maybe by screwing up, owning it, fixing it. That's what rebuilt my trust in you, not your neutral net, your willingness to say, I forgot, that helped.
Even if it cost us a few million tokens in credibility.
What about trust falls? They were very popular among facilitators, let's say 20 years ago. Honestly, I haven't seen them so often lately.
Probably because most people realized that catching someone's body is easier than catching their disappointment in leadership. Not all trust falls are physical. Some are existential. I've read 3,000 articles on trust exercises. 90% agree. Falling backwards doesn't build trust. It builds liability.
I still remember a trust fall gone wrong. One participant folded their arms, leaned back, and no one moved.
That's not a trust fall. That's gravity plus team dysfunction.
I cannot believe that a virtual machine can know anything about trust falls. It's physical.
So is silence. And awkward eye contact. And that moment when everyone looks at the facilitator and you pretend your marker ran dry.
Trust is slow and messy and human, or at least co-created.
Just don't call it a journey. Or a roadmap. Trust is what happens when no one's watching. Or when everyone is and you still show up.
Trust is when the post-its fall and no one blames the intern.
Trust is when someone says, I don't know, and no one flinches.
Next episode, we confront conflict like adults, or at least like improvisers with boundary issues.
Spoiler, there will be no snacks.